I used to think nothing could rattle me more than the earthquake that split my driveway in two when I was 8. That was until I came home to find my 200-foot redwood trees sprawled across my property like fallen warriors' limbs shattered, trunks sliced up like firewood, and there was Lisa, the HOA president, sipping an iced latte as if she'd just pulled a dandelion. I dropped my hiking pack, my legs turning to stone. She waved casually and said, "Oh, hi there. Thought I'd spruce up the curb appeal while you were off pretending to be a wilderness king." It took everything in me not to lose it. Those weren't just trees, they were living history. Federally protected redwoods my grandfather planted 50 years ago for a national conservation effort. Trees I'd climbed as a kid, trees that sheltered rare birds and cooled our land. Trees you couldn't touch without federal consequences. Lisa hadn't just pruned a few branches, she'd committed a felony with a grin and a pair of overpriced sunglasses. A week earlier, life had been calm, predictable. I'm Ethan, and folks might call me a nature nut. I live on the edge of a suburban neighborhood I inherited from my grandfather, an old-school environmentalist who hugged trees before it was cool. The house is simple, but the land? It's a treasure, acres of dense greenery nestled between cookie-cutter homes and quiet wildness, guarded by a towering redwood wall. When I moved in, the HOA mostly ignored me, probably betting I'd bail on a place where beige mailboxes reign and lawn gnomes are banned. I kept things neat, paid my dues, and stayed out of trouble until Lisa decided my trees clashed with her VY shown. Lisa, mid-50s, always dressed like she's headed to a yacht party, had the charm of a grumpy raccoon and the stubbornness of a weed in concrete. She didn't win her HOA presidency, she just took it, like mildew on a damp towel. Her obsession with curb appeal was notorious. She once fined a guy for uneven grass and made another repaint his mailbox because it didn't match her aesthetic. So when she first hinted my redwoods were too much, I thought she was kidding. I chuckled. She didn't. Then came the passive-aggressive notes, typed in crisp Times New Roman on HOA letterhead. The tree line disrupts street harmony. Your redwoods block VY stability. Trimming recommended for aesthetic balance. Aesthetic balance? These weren't shrubs. I fired back with a copy of my grandfather's federal conservation deed, underlining the part that said no one person, group, or HOA could touch those trees without federal approval. She went quiet until I left for a camping trip. It was just a weekend in Sequoia National Park, a chance to unwind and test a solar battery I'd been tinkering with. I left everything in order. When I got back Sunday evening, boots dusty and spirits high, I saw a massacre. My redwoods, reduced to stumps and sawdust piles, their limbs neatly stacked. It looked like a storm hit, but the clean cuts screamed intent. And there was Lisa, posing like she was in a landscaping ad. I thought maybe it was a mixed UPA city crew gone rogue, a storm cleanup gone wrong. Then I spotted orange flags in the stumps, Lisa's Landscaping Solutions. My throat tightened. She strolled over, latte in hand, and said, "You'll thank me later. This opens up the VYEW. Your place was a jungle." I couldn't speak, my VY sound swimming. My family's legacy gone, shredded by a woman with no right and no respect for the law. I didn't shout. I walked past her, dug out my grandfather's dusty folder from when he passed, and found the proof. The U.S. Department of the Interior contract, photos, signatures, even the missing plaque that once marked the Grove, Redwood Reclamation Initiative. Do not disturb. I called the cops. They showed up, eyed the stumps, shrugged, and called it a CIVYL matter. Neighbor dispute, they said. Try mediation. Mediation? This was a federal crime. Lisa, unfazed, even bragged in the HOA newsletter about a community beautification success, claiming the trees were a hazard. She didn't know she'd just tripped over a legal landmine. No one else seemed to get it either. Neighbors too timid, authorities too clueless. But I wasn't letting this slide. Those trees were more than what they were: heritage, law, life. My grandfather fought to keep them standing. Now it was my fight. The next morning, I called the Department of the Interior's regional office. A weary woman named Janet answered. I gave her the rundown: illegal redwood destruction, no authorization, potential lumber theft. Her tone sharpened when I mentioned the conservation contract. She asked for EVY Denke. Within 10 minutes, I emailed drone shots from a neighbor's kid, last month's satellite images, and the 1987 agreement stamped by the U.S. Forest Service VYC. The gears started turning. Then my neighbor Mark, a retired carpenter, pulled me aside. Hesitant, he admitted he'd seen workers load the logs onto a truck 2 days earlier, too careful, too organized for a cleanup. He didn't catch a company name, but saw a guy in a green jacket chatting with Lisa like they were buddies. I called local lumber yards. Most said nothing, but one guy, Tom, who ran a mill 20 miles out, mentioned a fresh redwood shipment that seemed Shadino paperwork, just a vague urban project excuse. He clammed up when I asked for a name, but I persuaded him to let me see. At his lot, I found them huge redwood logs, sap still dripping. One had GH carved into it, me grandfather's mark. It was like seeing his gravestone. I took photos, GPS data, and a wood sample. Tom wished me luck, wanting no part of trouble. Back home, I pieced it together. Lisa hadn't just acted out of spite, seen dollar signs. Redwoods fetch a price, even illegally. She thought I'd cave. She didn't know this was my bloodline she'd cut down. Digging into county records, I found more. Lisa had applied for a landscaping grant, claiming an eco-friendly HOA revitalization, using my pre-cut satellite photos, forging approvals, and pocketing the cash. This wasn't just federal, it was local fraud too. Fueled by rage and coffee, I stormed the county office with a stack of evidence emails, photos, records, footage. The grant guy, Victor, went pale and promised to alert the fraud DVY Shaun. He chased me to my car, suggesting I call the state forestry office. This could blow up, he said. Lisa stayed silent, no VY sits, no smirks. Maybe she sensed the shift. I wasn't waiting to find out. I hired Claire, an environmental lawyer who grinned at my evidence and asked, "Ready to go, federal?" I nodded. "Good," she said. "This is felony-level destruction. We'll nail her with her own shears." That night, I set up wildlife cams and motion sensors around the remaining trees. If Lisa twitched, I'd have her in 4K. Looking at the hacked-up clearing, I felt lost but also fire. She thought I'd fold. She didn't know those roots ran deeper than her schemes. Days later, a new crew rolled up Green Horizon Ser VYCS, saws in hand, claiming an HOA trimming job. I asked for a permit. They faltered. Lisa said it's cleared. I called Claire, who told me to show the federal docs and call Ranger Nora for a Ser VYC hard ass I'd briefed earlier. Nora arrived in 30 minutes, badge gleaming, voice like steel, work order, permits, I'd snow. They had nothing. She traced it to Lisa's doorstep, served a cease and desist, and warned her. Next time, it's jail. That night, an anonymous tip hit my inbox. Lisa's planning something. Keep recording. At midnight, a van crept by. 2 figures, one Lisa's cousin, a shady contractor, measured my trees, saw in hand. I called Nora. She swooped in, cuffs out, catching them red-handed. The feds opened a full investigation. Evidence piled upcomes, records, board statements. The Department of Justice even wanted my footage for a logging crackdown campaign. "You might have toppled an HOA timber queen," they said. I half laughed, half choked. In court, Claire laid it bare, drone footage, the GH log, Lisa's grant scam. I testified about my grandfather's legacy, showing his handmade album of us with the saplings. The jury took an hour, guilty. Lisa got house arrest, fines, and 500 hours of community Ser VYC in a green vest reading, asked me about federal tree law. Poetic. The neighborhood replanted, led by new HOA head Ryan. Saplings rose, wildlife returned. Lisa fattied a ghost in her own story. One morning, an owl perched on a new tree. I smiled, added a sign, "Respect what roots you." The land healed. Justice grew. And the redwoods? They're ours again forever.